Okay, and also for my fellow students, learners, and also practitioner of philosophy, to our faculties, to our guests, and also to our moderator, Dr. Jane, and for my panelists, Sir Kentanar, Dr. Chan, and also for Professor Manina. Peace be with you all. And today I'm here to defend my thesis on the epistemic responsibility and the right to religious belief. To have a brief background of my research, I will read to you the abstract. Okay, whether or not we have the right to believe in religious belief is the concern of which the theists and agnostics continue undebated. This paper aims to analyze the argument of the two philosophers and their opposing essays. First, from William Kingdon Clifford, over his book, The Ethics of Belief, he argues that it is always wrong for anyone at anywhere to believe based on insufficient evidence. And then second is from William James in his book, The Will to Believe, Ethics rather, essay. William James in his essay, The Will to Believe, he argues that in special cases like belief that is intellectually undecidable, it is not just lawful, but a must to believe or decide based on our passional nature and guided by the genuine option. Thus, the research aimed to defend whether or not we are epistemically responsible for holding such religious belief in the absence of insufficient evidence. With that, I am ready for your questions. Thank you.
We start with Professor Manina.
Hello, Warren. Can you hear me?
Professor? Yes, Professor.
Alright, so a pleasant morning once again to everyone, especially to you and my fellow examiners. No, secondly, I also commend you, like Michael, a while ago, no, for coming up with your paper. Alright, so
Thank you, sir.
now I examined also your paper, specifically whether you adequately answered your research questions or achieved your objectives. And I understand that you're coming from being one of those taking philosophy following the divinity track, right?
Yes, Professor.
Alright. Now your paper impresses that you sided with James to assert your thesis, am I right?
Yes, Professor.
Alright. So now as a continuation of an examination which I was doing because I was reading your paper before like 2 days ago, my question will simply gauge your familiarity with your paper and its implications. Now, explain your response to it, alright? So my question goes this way. I'm going to repeat this twice for your convenience. Alright. So your paper appears that following James' perspective and categorization, one should still be more, with emphasis on more, epistemically responsible for her religious belief. Okay? So does this mean a possibility of abandoning one's religion if one's findings are unlikely? I'm going to repeat the question. So your paper appears that following James' perspective and categorization, one should still be more epistemically responsible for her religious belief or his religious belief. Does this mean a possibility of abandoning one's religion if one's findings are unlikely? Now, the context of this question is, of course, presupposing of the debate that you were projecting in your paper. So, I actually made this question from towards the conclusion of your paper. So, would you like to respond now to that question?
Yes, Professor Maynard. Thank you so much for your questions. I believe your questions focus on abandoning one's religion when it comes that we're having now the context of having the right to believe religious belief and finding that religious belief moral in the context of having a genuine options for William James. And to answer that about abandoning one's belief, it's not really, William James is not talking about one to abandon one's belief, but finding his belief as something that is genuine, based on genuine options. We need to say that must be living, forced, and momentous. So his rational or epistemologically responsible on believing such religious belief without insufficient with the lack of sufficient evidence if such belief is likely a genuine kind of belief. So I hope I have answered your questions.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify because you're suggesting towards the end of your paper that, well, I understand that according to James, you have to base this from your passionate nature, am I correct?
Yes.
And of course, the criteria of genuine option with the three elements there. But, well, I understand that this is a different categorization. Religious belief is a different categorization according to James,
Yes.
and that we have to, and that, but still, you are saying in your paper that you still have to be epistemically responsible. Meaning to say, if you're a believer, no, if for instance I'm oriented with James' philosophy and perspective, um, I would understand that I still need to be epistemically responsible for my belief. So that's what I'm getting from what you're saying towards the last part of your paper. So does this mean is this not detrimental to my belief, for instance? Okay? Is it not detrimental because you're saying I have to still know more about my religion? What if, for example, it runs contrary to my doctrine, to the doctrines of the religion that I believe? Well, basically, somehow this has something to do with the quasi implications of your paper. So, what can you say about that? Will it not be detrimental to my say present religion that I am embracing? So, what can you say about that?
Okay, so first and foremost, I would like to clarify what I mean by epistemic responsibility, which is our responsibility to know well of our religious belief. And that context that is for the epistemic responsible person is to have its supported with evidence. But in terms of a religious belief, since God is beyond the physical realm, and that cannot be testable or observable, it means that we cannot use that kind of category or criteria based from William James. Therefore, we need another category, and it won't be determined what the term determine the
Detrimental.
detrimental of your own religion if such belief is already based on faith. Okay, I would like to emphasize what William James trying to emphasize on his quote that everyone is autonomous on himself. He can believe whatever is kind of belief as long as somehow it is partly guided by the genuine options. But in the end, it is autonomous, meaning to say you can believe whatever it believes, and if you are in error, it is the worst of you. But but somehow for us to be to avoid that kind of error despite lack of evidence, James offered to us a kind of category that we could still see that our belief cannot just have some guided or in line with the truth, but also has its practical consequences. That's why I enter now to the pragmatism, which is it is actually the mediating philosophy between the evidentialism and theism, because evidentialism is trying to look for the evidence of God's existence, of which cannot be found in this physical world. And for that kind of case, James would like to say that we should be agnostic, like suspend our judgment. But with that, William James says not, no, there is somehow some proof that we can use as an evidence. But first we must believe, or somehow we do believe first that kind of truth will come into fact when we first have the preliminary faith that I mentioned in my paper, which means that you are not detrimental of your religion if such kind of faith has the practical consequences of which is morally good, which means that which means you are epistemically responsible to hold that kind of belief as long as it has a practical moral significance in your life.
All right, Warren, thank you very much for responding to my questions and good luck.
Thank you, Professor Manina.
Thank you, Jupor, Amen. So, should we go to Gabriel Kitanar?
Good morning, sir.
Hello, hi. Okay, firstly, I'd like to comment on it. It's good. Right?
Thank you, sir.
To accomplish the thing that it wants to do, which is to provide valid or somewhat of a justification for religious. Okay? One thing that's missing, right? One thing is an extended or more discussion